This just in. Breaking news! Our top story tonight. The Nik Airball Matt Berkey Challenge is officially underway with the first session in the books. Airball started off down 400k and clawed back to down 135, but today we're going to be breaking down the biggest hands. For everyone that likes to see high-level poker at high stakes, you might want to consider checking out another video. Next up, Reddit Poker broke down this YouTuber's looks when he's value betting versus bluffing. Nice try, guys. But you really think I would have some tells and big pots I'd play on stream? No chance. Let me just write these down though. Also tonight, Dan Smith and Marcus Gonzalez with their round 2 of their tennis versus frying pan prop bet. This time the stakes are 6 figures. $100,000 to win $125,000 are some pretty high stakes. Whoever loses this one might have to go panhandling. And finally tonight, Alec Torelli with an important note on investing. It's easier to go from 1 million to 2 million than to go from $0 to 1 million. You can always count on Alec to look at things from a different angle. All this and more tonight on Poker News. Before we get things rolling here, I want to talk about the Lodge Championship Series. That is the flagship tournament series here in Austin, Texas. We got a lot of awesome stuff coming up for you. For starters, we're going to try and run some big games on the last 2 weekends of April and the first weekend of May. So if you like playing some higher stakes stuff, we're looking at 50 to 100 plus. Make sure to get in contact with myself or Skull Mike, and we're going to try and get you into some lineups. Should be some good ones. I'm looking forward to it. As for the series itself, on April 25th, we're going to be doing a meetup game with myself, Brad Owen, and Andrew Nemi, as well as Ebony Kenny. This actually falls on her birthday, and she's going to be hopping by the lodge as well. Stop on by to play some poker with all of us. Following that meetup game, we have a few weekends of big tournament action. The first weekend is going to be a $400 300k guarantee. Second will be a $500k guarantee. And the last week, we'll have a high roller series culminating in the main event with a $3,000 buy-in and a $2 million prize pool that we did not hit last year. If you have no interest in coming out to play, well, I have some good news. We're going to be streaming the high roller week and the main event final table all over on our lodge. Poker at the Lodge live stream. So plenty of action coming up for the viewers at home. I hope you guys enjoy. Moving on, let's talk about this tennis rematch. Dan Smith has tweeted saying, a couple drinks at lunch and the shit talk was flowing. Me and Darkus scheduled a rematch in Dan vs. Pan. My 100K, his 125K, May 1st at Darling. That's right. $100,000 wagered on who can win with a frying pan versus a tennis racket. This is content. It's probably a reasonably fair wager if they're both accepting it. Dan's a pretty sharp dude, although Marcus obviously knows his way around the tennis court. I imagine some practice and getting into good shape, as well as maybe working on your frying pan action, might be the way for them to train for this. That said, we'll definitely be keeping you updated on who wins in this dumb challenge. Moving on, let's talk about this Reddit video where someone posted side-by-side clips of me bluffing and value betting and really gets into the weeds here with visual aids as to what I'm doing when I'm bluffing and I'm value betting. And I gotta say, my first instincts are, this is really scary. If I have any tells, then they're gonna get micro-analyzed to death, and then people will come out to my card room and beat me. So I might have to be a little more careful with some body posture stuff. I did watch both of these through. It seems pretty consistent to me. The only thing that I noticed was my leg seems on the side when I'm bluffing in a couple of these. I think that's just because in those hands, I started with my legs on the side. Obviously, when you play long matches, try and stretch your legs out, whatever. I don't think that I just left it, or I moved it there because I was bluffing. At least I hope. Either way, next time I'm playing a match, I'm going to have to mix it up. The commenters weighed in with a lot of opinions about my bluffs, which one I had. Do I blink a lot when I'm bluffing? What's going on here? Am I more tense? What do you think, guys? In the comments below, what do you think? But just remember, if you see it and it's there, make sure to not say anything about it.
I can see it, and I'm not going to say it. And guys, see if you can spot it, but do not comment if you do see it.
Ah, classic memes. Just like Mama used to make. Moving on, let's briefly talk about Alec Torelli. Hustler, what are we doing? Why are we making Alec Torelli a thing? I mean, this is not a star. This is Alec Torelli. I'm not trying to cancel him, and sure, I feel maybe somewhat bad that his entire career will be defined by having some big chips behind some small chips, but the thing is, I just think you can find a better personality than Alec Torelli. Anyway, moving on, I've hidden our bigger story behind our smaller one, and let's talk about Berks versus Airball. The challenge is on. Round one, has been concluded with Berkey landing a straight right cross. It was getting into uppercut territory with Airball being down almost $400,000, but rallying back to lose only $135K. And I know those sound like big numbers because they are, but I want you guys to know this is a big game they're playing. 200, 400 with a $400 ante. There's already $1,000 in their pre-flop. This is something like 330, 660 blinds. So it's going to have multiple $100,000 swings, especially because Airball buys in deep. He sat down with $500K to Berkey's $100,000. In just the matches I'm playing over at the Lodge at 200, 400 with no ante, we've seen some multi-$100,000 swings in session, including me losing a $430K pot or whatever it was. We're seeing really big pots here, and I would expect that to continue. In fact, there was an over $400,000 hand that we're going to break down. I do have some hand histories I want to talk about. Before we do, we have Joe Ingram live on the field. Joey, how's it looking down there?
All right, thanks a lot, Doug. I cannot believe it. We got another heads-up poker grudge match actually going down here in Las Vegas, GTO headquarters. They're brawling in the Bellagio. They're shoving each other. And I'm like, what's going on? So I had to go over and see it for myself, Doug. Thomas was in there working hard, trying to scout the game out. And I went into the room during the match. The players weren't talking at all. Nik Airball getting a great head massage. Apparently, there was a little drama earlier in the day, Doug. Allegedly, there was a secret meeting. I asked Berkey, I said, Berkey, what happened? He says he walks into the bathroom and Nik Airball and Brown Baller, while they're on a break, are like huddled up having a conversation. I don't know if they're running the Brown Baller simulations or what exactly is going down in that bathroom. Talked with both players after the match. Berkey was locked in. He was dialed in. He was focused. He said, I'm going to destroy this guy. He said he's staying off social media. And he wasn't impressed with Nik Airball's play. Nik Airball only down about $135,000. And once again, I cannot believe the match is actually going down. It's crazy to see day one. I'm going to be out here in Vegas covering the whole match. I'll be on location. I'll be talking with both players. Look forward to seeing how Doug works with Nik Airball. I mean, Doug's the coach here. Coach Doug is back. So we'll see. Back to you, Doug.
We do appreciate that expert inside footage as well as thoughts about the match from Joe Ingram. If you guys want to check out some long form content, you can head over to Joe Ingram 1 here on YouTube, or one breakdown for up-to-date details and discussion about what is happening in the Airball Burks Challenge. Let's get into some hand histories of the challenge so you guys can take a look at what's happening in the match. Before we do, I have to say, this is not like I'm getting hand histories hand delivered from a website where I know these hands are accurate. We are talking about hand histories played back from the mind of Nik Airball, including a lot of hands where stacks aren't mentioned. So we're going to be doing our best to be as accurate as possible. However, there is absolutely a possibility some sizes are wrong or some stacks are wrong or things like that. So if someone says otherwise, by all means, we could be wrong, but the general gist of these hands will be correct. Okay, first hand we're going to look at, let's just say stacks are 200K to start because it's not going to be that important. Airball opens up the pocket cowboys. Berkey defends. The flop comes queen 10-9, 2 diamonds. Check. Airball bets 1K. Berkey makes it 4.5K. Call. Turns 8 of diamonds. Check, check. River Jack, the board's now a straight. Berkey bets 15K here into 9K plus what I imagine is something like 5K. So just about full pot here from Berkey. And Airball does make the call with the pocket kings, and Berkey has 8-5 with no diamond. Bit of a loose check raise here on the flop from Berkey. I doubt this happens much in theory, although it probably does every now and then. And then I imagine river for Berkey, he should basically never be bluffing this hand. He will almost always want to have a diamond in his hand to make this play. Just seems kind of loose to me from Berkey. Definitely standard here from Nik. One of the better hands I've seen played in the bigger pots here today. My understanding is that Berkey opened to a variety of different sizes here, so the pre-flop pot size just could be off in some instances, but typically it was about Berkey raising to 1,500 or something like that. Next hand goes open from Berkey, call from Nik Airball. The flop is king 3 deuce 2 hearts. Airball flops middle pair top kicker. Berkey has, let's just go ahead and say it's 6-9 of hearts. I think Airball didn't mention the exact cards he had, just that Berkey did have 2 hearts here. Action goes check, bet, call. Let's also assume it's 1/3 pot or so on the flop. Turn 4 of hearts, now 3 hearts out there. Check, Berkey barrels call. River queen, Airball checks. Berkey bets 20K into 10K, and Airball goes for the $75,000 huge river check raise with just the ace of hearts. And Berkey does call with an unspecified flush. We'll just say 6-9 of hearts just for the lulz in this exact example. So I think this is actually a really well-played hand from both players. Airball's hand makes a lot of sense to bluff with. He has the pair plus nut flush blocker. Berkey with an unpaired flush definitely makes a lot of sense to go for a bigger value bet. I don't really like the 20K size. I think I'd go more like 15K, but I think this is actually just a really well-played hand from both of them, which based on the other hands I've seen is probably going to be pretty rare for this challenge. The next hand began near the start of the session, about 100K stacks here, and this one is a doozy. So Berkey opens the button, and Airball decides to go ahead and call with the ace-6 offsuit. Berkey with the 10-9 off. Flop king jack 7 rainbow. Check. Berkey bets half pot, which seems fine here. I usually like bigger sizes on this board, but whatever. Airball goes for the call. I think this is a little bit too loose. Turn 3, check. Berkey bets half pot. This is just a bad bet size from Berkey. You should be going bigger in this situation. Airball decides to call. This is just a bad call from Airball. You should definitely be folding this hand. River jack. Airball goes for the check. You could debate some leads here, but I think check is fine. Airball shoes. And Berkey goes for the 1/3 pot bet, which is just a big question mark for me. I don't really know what he's trying to do there. And then for Airball, I think River's close actually. He has a heart in his hand, which makes his hand a pretty reasonable bluff catcher. So I don't mind the river call from Airball. But yeah, this was a pretty butchered up hand from everyone. And this is really why we need these hands on stream, because just how great would this be to see live on the stream. Okay, this leads up to our biggest hand of the session. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Hand begins $400,000 deep. At this point, I think Berkey's been smashing. So they have very, very, very deep stacks. Berkey opens to 2K. Nik 3-bets with the 7-5 of spades to 7K. Berkey calls. 14K in the pot. We've got 393,000 behind. The flop comes queen 10-9 2 spades. I think in Airball shoes you can bet or check. Both seem reasonable. He decides to go ahead and bet for 1/3 pot, which is fine. And Berkey decides to call. The turn is an offsuit deuce. Nik decides to barrel here, which is a very reasonable hand to bet with. You have the flush draw equity, and you're going to fold out a bunch of hands that are ahead of you. At this point, the hand gets interesting. Berkey goes for the raise. This is a weird raise spot. It's correct to have some small raises here, but most good players won't do this very often because it's kind of FPS-y. Essentially, it's hard to balance this turn raise range with very many hands. So it's the kind of thing that I think people do when they think they're a lot smarter than they are and they're not able to do it correctly, which definitely makes sense for Berks. Anyway, 50K back over to Airball. Airball has a very clear fold now. So, of course, he calls, and we're playing some goddamn fucking poker on the internet. I also want the record to show he might have said fuck you before calling the turn. I can't confirm that entirely, but just imagine Airball saying that going into the river. Anyway, Airball does make the call here out of position, and he just bangs off the spade, the 6 of spades, at which point he goes for a $150,000 lead. I mean, why not at this point? I think I would check my whole range here in Airball shoes because you shouldn't have too many flushes, and you can go for check raises. But that said, does go for the 150K lead. At this point, Berkey tanks it out and ultimately does make the call and mucks. So 300K in the river, 100K on the turn. That's 400K, 10K in the flop. Yeah, we're looking at about a 430K pot. The biggest pot so far of the match going to Airball. And I am not a fan of how either one of them played this. Their match resumes today, probably already going at the time this video post. So we'll be having more updates for you as this goes along. I gotta say, guys, the wind has been taken out of my sails a little bit here as I was recording this video because I got some bad news here as I was recording that Thayer, the professional poker player, well known in the tournament community, has actually sadly passed away. And Sean D posted a quote from his family. Thayer's full name is Thayer Rasmussen, and he's been a staple of the tournament community for many, many years. I actually remember seeing his name when I first started playing poker in the 2008-ish era. Sean Deeb actually tweeted and had a post here about this saying, "We are deeply saddened to confirm the tragic loss of our son, brother, and Uncle Thayer. Anyone who Thayer knows he was never one to wear his heart on his sleeve, but make no mistake, Thayer had the biggest heart and leaves behind love worthy of it. The 6 of us knew every second how much he cared for us, but perhaps many of you did not know how much you meant to him. It wasn't just stories we never thought we would hear. It was the way he tackled world issues or debated sports topics. Thayer has been intelligent almost to a frustrating degree since he was a baby, but you all helped mold him into the man he became. All you want for someone you love is happiness, and we can confirm he brought that while we were lucky enough to have him with us. To anyone who was a part of that, thank you. It is impossible to prepare for a day like today, so while we encourage all to mourn him in their own way, we only ask that our privacy is respected because we will be mourning and grieving for a long time. Eric, Susan, Joffrey, Brent, Paige, and Adrian. Sean Deeb also went on to say, he was the waffle to my crush, my first poker friend. Wouldn't have been as successful in poker without his guidance, his super system, and our prop bets to motivate each other. Was lucky in 2021 to drive to Jersey and grind the online event at his house, and it was like no time had passed. Sad news, guys, and it really highlights sort of the shortness of life. I've been in poker for a good number of years now, and you start to see more and more people pass away. That's just how it goes over time. So be thankful to have what you have while you have it, and just remember that life does not last forever. A somber note here to end on poker news, but unfortunately that is sometimes the way that things go. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Peace.